Um, is there any Shipbrook pizza left?
She's still
I
hungry.
could really use another helping.
Oh. See, she has these charming, cute, like, moments too, and it's like, you want to like her because, you know, it's endearing and, like, she's showing who she is, but then there's the moments where she just acts like a complete dumbass. And you're just like, oh my god, man. Like, It really, really makes me feel a similar way to Lyse sometimes. Where it's like, God, Lyse, sometimes it would just be better if you just didn't talk. Like, at least for just a minute, you know? Just like, go without a line or two, you know? She's more a mascot than a leader? Yeah, I agree. Would you say you're having an inverse experience to the one you had with Lyse? I would say that Wuk Lamat is very different from Lyse in her cultural sensitivity. I think that Wuk Lamat is much more like desiring to learn about these people and really understand what drives them, their history, like we just saw, why did they go to war? What was the resolution of that? What's the deeper lesson that can be learned, that's taken from this? Like, what's really the truth? Like Wuk Lamat, that's what she's interested in. And I felt like Lyse was more like just interested in solving people's problems. Like, that might sound similar, but I think that it's very different. Like, Lyse was sometimes brutishly trying to like brute force solve a problem. And part of that was the fact of how her identity came to be revealed and why she was a part of the Scions. I understand that. We can't take that whole complexity away from it. But Lyse, I feel like, she wasn't so much as in tune. And Wuk Lamat, at the end of the day, I don't think Wuk Lamat really even cares if she becomes Dawn's servant. She could, but I think that at the end of the day, she just wants what's best for the people around her. And I think that's part of what's so important. And Lyse desires that too, but Lyse got particularly frustrated and outwardly frustrated when things didn't go how she expected them to. And I feel like that's a big difference between Wuk Lamat and Lyse, is that Wuk Lamat is accepting when she doesn't understand, and she's like, okay, so teach me. Where do I go? How do we find that out, right? Where Lyse is more like, well, they're not listening to me. How do we get them to listen? It's very different in that way, in my opinion. And maybe I'm misremembering how Lyse was, but at least early game, that's kind of how I felt with Lyse in Stormblood. So similar, but still different. They kind of rhyme, but they're not identical to each other. At least Wuk Lamat isn't constantly trying to do things that will get oppressed people killed in retaliation. Exactly. That was Lyse's problem, is she would just... She's so good-hearted, well-spirited, just like Wuk Lamat, but she's impatient and didn't originally have that level of empathy, that level of understanding of oppression and how those people got to that state. Now here in Tuli Alal, Yaktaral, Yaktel, these are places where people aren't being oppressed, but it's not really about comparing the specific strife that they're undergoing. It's more so how do we as an individual come about trying to be an ally to those people, right? Like how do we help them? You have to be compassionate to them. You need to understand their history. You need to understand the culture, because I guess, in this case, as we've seen, if you are not recognizing and appreciating and valuing those things, and what is it that you're really there doing? Are you there to just check off a list of who do we help next? Because at that point, that's not the best kind of leader that you would want. Someone who just comes in and is like, oh, here's how I will solve your problem, and that's the answer. That's very much how Bakul Jaja or Zoral Jah would, I think, come across. Obviously besides the militant factors, but yeah, I think that's a big difference between Wuk Lamat and Lyse. So, but unfortunately, they do still have similarities, some of which are great and some of which are not. But I gotta just give her time, because sometimes it's like, the thing is that the level of naivete and kind of ditziness that Wuk Lamat has, I'm just not sure if that's something that's going to change. Like, that might just be the character archetype, and that might not change at all. That's what I fear most. Like, I don't mind this as long as, I don't know, it's like, should someone have to change? Like, does she need to change? And is she not? I think in some ways she already has. So I guess there is that. But, you know, it's kind of like a difficult situation for me because I kind of look at characters like people, right? Would I ask Wuk Lamat to be different in person? No. No. And so is it weird for me to think of it that way as a spectator? I think maybe a little bit. It's kind of weird to like think of it that way. But I don't know. I think everyone can and should grow, you know? And so I kind of hope, but I guess it depends on how you define growth. Is growth someone not being as annoying? I don't know. Maybe. It depends on how you define that. So, yeah, we'll see.